welcome to TORAH Talk. I am your host, William Hall, broadcasting live out of Kingsland, Texas, USA, with episode number 39 of Controversial Issues with Rabbi Chaim Coffman from the Holy Land. Welcome back, my good friend. How are you? I guess it would be better if I turned your microphone up, wouldn't it? Hang on a second. That's funny. I had you muted. Isn't that wonderful? There we go. Good deal.
All right, we're going to mime the whole show. You figure it out. Ready?
Yeah, for sure. Hey, you keep that up. I may have to because it's a little pixelated, mainly because of the, I guess, the internet speed on your end and whatnot. So we don't know what's going on for sure there. But anyway, it's good to have you back nonetheless. And as long as we have good audio, the video can come and go if it wants to. But I think we'll be all right, though. So the topic today brought to you by Chrissy's Kitchen. My wife was asking me about it, and I told her actually I think we had talked about it before. I'm not really sure I know you and I have not, but I've had it on the show before. We've talked with Rabbi Singer, but it was such a long time ago. I don't really remember all the details, so that's kind of what we're going to be hitting on today are the details. And so something she brought up, which I think is very very interesting to say the least, is that regarding burial. I mean, back in the day, you had back in burial times, I mean, the caskets weren't like the same as they are now. I mean, nowadays they're airtight. It seems like there's no way for natural decomp to take place or whatever the case. Her words were a little bit more like you're going to turn into like this little bowl of soup down in there, because of the way the caskets are made today. So she said, wouldn't it be better to be, burned in a fire than to actually be after you die and you put in the suffocating casket where there's no oxygen, there's no way for decomp to really take place at a normal rate, that sort of thing. So we'll cover a couple different aspects of it, but kind of just as importantly, how does cremation play in the in the Olam Haba, in the world to come? So as far as your choice now versus then, so let's talk about a little bit of everything. See what happens. Phone lines are going to be open here in just a moment. Your phone line. Let me see if I can find the screen here. I got too many cameras and stuff all over the place here. Give me 1 second. Put the phone number on your screen, 855-95-BIBLE, 855-952-4253. So, if you want to have a question regarding today's topic, realistically, it doesn't have to be just on today's topic, but it's helpful if it is. If you've got another controversial issue that you want to ask a question and you want to prop it in, call in. I'll take your question, and then after Rabbi finishes up, well, I'll have a little note, and we'll see if we have time to roll into the different topic. But we'll try to keep it topic related if possible. So, okay, phone line is now on your screen, so feel free to call in. And the phone lines are officially open now. Very good. Okay, Rabbi, welcome back. How was your week? You getting ready for finished up with Purim, and we're coming up on Pesach now, on Passover. So, any thoughts on?
That's like a four-letter word by. That's like a four-letter word by most women. A few months ago already. It's like, oh, Passover's coming, but we were in the middle of planning a wedding, so Passover sort of got put on the back burner. But every day felt like it was Passover because you had all these things to do for the wedding. So now now we have a list. We're checking it twice. Getting into mode, so to speak, getting back to what they call the real world after the wedding, after Purim, after everything's said and done. So, and I'm also somewhat glad that they changed the clocks back in the States. So now at least I have, I can do this an hour earlier. So, but then my other class is at 9 o'clock. Instead it'll be 9 o'clock, an hour ahead for me. So that's like 2:30 in the morning. So that makes it worse. So I'll get another few weeks to catch up. So by the time I catch up, then I'm already behind. Anyway,
very true.
Anyway, I'm digressing. So I'll hit the second topic first about cremation. You mentioned about Olam Haba. Now, many years ago, I had this discussion with my Rebbe once, and I claimed that certainly cremation is cheaper. I think it's more efficient, and so I said, why don't more people do it? Forget about the halachic aspect. Why don't more people do it? So my Rebbe pointed out, he said, at least, most people want some sort of remembrance, in this world. At least, they'll know that somebody came if they're already, ashes or whatever. They're not in the ground, so they're not really going to know that much, what happened. So, the other thing you mentioned about being in these, these airtight things, in Israel, you get dumped in the ground. When the Torah says you go back to the dust, here in Israel, they take it literally. You don't go in a box. In the States,
really,
they put you, you're obligated. Yeah, So here, like you're wrapped in a shroud. You can't see the body. I mean, the body is, is covered up.
Right.
So you can't see the body, but the body goes, directly in the ground. I mean, it's kind of eerie, in a certain way, where you sort of hear like a thud. I mean, it's not really a thud. They put it on planks. They put it on stones, and the stones are on the stones are like planks, and the body is placed, in there. But when, before the body, goes in the ground, where they have the eulogies, you see the body like on a stretcher. It's just covered up. You can't see, obviously you can't see any aspect of the body. It's totally covered up. I mean, that makes it pretty real. The fact that it's like, there's your good friend or whatever, and they're lying right there, and it's like they're on a stretcher. You can almost like, touch them. Kids, don't try this at home, but it's, the body's like right there. So, in the States, it's basically a closed casket, and in Jewish law, certainly you can't go and, according to Jewish law, you should go straight in the ground. Right? Outside of Israel, that's not the case. They don't put them straight in the ground. So what they do, the next best thing, is they use a pine box, right? A very simple wood box. And, the body goes in. I might say, well, you have these other things that are like, airtight. And if they're airtight, so it takes longer to decompose, by a wood box, that's not the case. Right? By a wood box, it'll decompose pretty quick. The wood will decompose, and the body as well. So that's why Jews are buried in a wooden box, very simple box. You can't be buried in a mausoleum, as the Torah says that a person is created from the four corners of the earth, from the dust of the four corners of the earth. And when death is decreed, death is not a Jewish concept. There never should have been an idea of death, but because man ate from the tree of knowledge, right? Adam and Eve ate from the tree. That was it. God said, all right, everyone out of the pool, throws them out of the Garden of Eden, and there was a decree of death in the world. All things being equal, Adam's given one command. The one command he's given is don't eat from the tree. Whatever you do, don't eat from the tree. What does he do? He eats from the tree, right? So because he ate from the tree, everything in creation sort of had to change, right? Even though God understood this could possibly happen. So therefore there was this idea of death, and, a person, in order to get their true atonement, they have to die. Certainly for certain sins that they do, for sure they have to go through death. But at the same time, the body has to decompose and the soul has to get judgment. So when the Torah says that the body is created from the four corners of the earth, the dust of the four corners of the earth, the Torah says it has to go back to the dust. That means for a Jew, now we'll speak about non-Jews in a minute. Jews have 100% obligation when they die. They can't get cremated. Goes against the 13 principles of faith. The last of the 13 principles of faith is resurrection of the dead. Resurrection of the dead means you have to have a body in order to come back. Now, what about people in the Holocaust that got burnt, right? And they got frightened, and who knows what else happened to them.
That's a good point.
Right? So that was done against their will. If it's done against your will, that's something else. God can certainly bring you back from the dead, even if you're ashes. But at the same time, that being said, a Jew 100% has an obligation to go in the ground, because that is how they're going to get their true judgment. The body has to decompose, the soul has to get judged.
So you're saying that if a person knows this and says, you know what, I can't, my family can't afford a burial, so they're going to cremate me anyway. Are you saying if they get cremated, that's like an unpardonable sin, that they won't be forgiven for that, and they won't be just because of that one thing?
If it's done willingly, right? If it's done willingly, So that goes against, the 13 principles of Maimonides, and it goes against the principle of resurrection.
Okay.
So even if a person doesn't know anything, they grow up as I always say, they grow up as a potato farmer in Idaho, right? No offense, anyone who's a potato farmer or grew up in Idaho, but they didn't know any better. They got themselves cremated because they want to do it cheap or whatever the case is. So they go against this 13 principles of Maimonides. They don't have a portion of the world to come. They don't get up at resurrection. That is pretty severe. So the obligation is, that they have to go in the ground, and if not, if it's done willingly. Again, ignorance is not bliss over here, right? There are 13 principles of faith of the Rambam, of Maimonides. You have to believe in an absolute God, right? God doesn't change. He knows the thoughts of man. He has the right to punish. Moshe Rabbeinu is the father of all prophets. His prophecy, like all these different things. You have to believe in the Messiah, and you have to believe in resurrection. This goes directly against resurrection, because resurrection means you're coming back with a body. What type of body? So I asked my Rebbe this once, and he said it's a different type of body that we know. If the soul has the ability to come back, it'll come back, and whatever this body is. So me being obnoxious, I said, what type of body is it? He said, I just told you. Nobody knows. We don't know. It's just a different type of body. As my Rebbe's always fond of saying, I never met anybody who's been in that world and come back. Right? So we don't know, but a body, some sort of body is going to get up. If you have the merit to get up at resurrection. If using your own will and judgment, you are of sound mind, and you declare and decree that you want to be cremated, that goes against the faith of resurrection, and that is a big, big no-no, to the extent that someone who does that, even if they don't know anything, will not get up at resurrection. That's how that's how severe it is. Now, there are people also that are buried in mausoleums. They take these, humongous things, big slabs of stone or whatever, put themselves in this, I don't know, whatever it is, this mausoleum. Problem is, it's not in the ground. So if it's not in the ground, you have done tremendous disservice, certainly to the soul. The soul cannot get its true judgment. So as far as I understand, which is limited, so you can take what I say with a grain of salt, according to Kabbalah, the pain that the soul goes through, because it's not in the ground, and it doesn't get buried, and it cannot get judged, right? We have no idea, right? The little that I do know is pretty scary, so I don't want to scare anyone, but the severity of the pain of what the soul goes through, doesn't know where to go. It's sort of like in no man's land. It can't get judged, right? It's totally confused, right? And the longer it waits to get into the ground, the longer, the more pain, that the soul goes through, which, again, we can't really imagine. I remember being at a funeral, and, as the hearse is, is going out, the people walking behind it, I heard one of the rabbis screaming, just get out of the way, let him go, just let this person go and be buried, right? You don't want to delay any time, because the soul goes into a tremendous flux, right? Doesn't know where to go, what to do. It's tremendously scared, right? It tries to go, first thing it tries to do, obviously, is go back into the body. The soul can't do that, because obviously it's outside the body now. And then it goes to, to go to places to where it knows, so to speak, but it's in tremendous confusion until it's called up for judgment, right? Once the body's in the ground, right, then the soul will go up and will get, the judgment process, will start. It's also known even before that, it can hover around, the house where, people are mourning, and, you can imagine if you have all these great conversations about the person who passed away, and say, I remember all the great shrimp he ate, and I remember all the, smorgasbords, and I remember all the ball games he used to go to. Imagine what that soul is thinking when it's hearing this. They're like, no, be quiet. Keep your big mouth shut. What do you're killing me even more, right? But the bottom line is that here certainly in Jerusalem, the body doesn't stay in wait more than 24 hours. In other words, by hook or by crook, within 24 hours, that body will be in the ground, right? It's not gonna, if someone can't get there to the burial, someone from outside of Israel, they're not gonna wait, right? Then, in outside of Israel, there can be certain circumstances where you'd wait, in order, maybe, people coming from far away or whatever the case is. But, even in that case, it's tremendous pain. It's tremendous pain for the soul the longer it takes to get into the ground. But so according to this, the soul, the body, in order to get its proper reward in the next world, it has to go through decomposing, right? The body has to decompose. It has to go in the ground. That is the start, of the process where the soul can get fixed up. It gets judged. It has to go to Gehenna, to hell, in order to go through this process of cleansing. It's a cleansing process. Hopefully there's something left of the soul where it'll be able to get its true reward in the Garden of Eden, in paradise. But it doesn't get off the ground, no pun intended, right? Or it doesn't get above the ground, whatever, if the body's not in the ground, right? That's really the bottom line. For a Jew, they have to be in the ground.
What if, so somebody asked, what if a person is Gilgul? What is that? What does that mean?
A Gilgul is somebody who ends up coming back to this world, right? Reincarnated soul.
I got you.
So
okay.
our souls have been here more than, certainly more than once. But even when the soul goes up, the body, the person has to die. And that body has to go in the ground. So even if it's a Gilgul, even if it's a reincarnated soul, so whatever body that soul was in, that body's still going to die. That body's still going to decompose, and that soul's going to go right? It's going to go straight up, and it's going to get judged to see if it reached its potential the second time or the third time. Usually there's a difference of opinion whether reincarnated soul comes back here 3 times or some say even 4 times. But we're probably last wrong over here, that whatever we're supposed to be doing in this world, hopefully we get it right, this time around, because most likely the soul's not coming back. Another time. It seems like it's going to be the last time around. Not, it doesn't have to be 100%, but that's the way, that's definitely the way it looks. So in either case, that reincarnated soul is still going to have to, it's going to be in a body. That body's going to die, and the soul will go up. And if the soul has to come back, okay, it'll come back in another body. Same thing's going to happen eventually. That body, that soul is going to be taken out, and the body's going to die. So it doesn't matter how many times, 2 times, 3 times, 4 times, whatever it is, that soul is going to have to come back into a different body.
Now, for all you viewers,
resurrection.
So for all the viewers out there who are maybe hearing of this whole reincarnation thing for the first time, you might want to clarify. It's not reincarnation like you would hear in other like mystic religions, like where you're going to come back as a dog or a frog or a log, but it's not the same thing. It's a concept that probably takes a lot more than just a couple minutes to explain. But no, it's not the same. Just want to clarify that. So
no, but a person could come back, certainly as a dog or
what are you kidding me?
An inanimate object. So that is a Jewish concept. There's a whole list of things that a person could. Potentially could come back. I'll just give one story, just an interesting story. There was somebody that didn't go to a synagogue, in the city where he lived. So he came back as part of the wall, of the synagogue. So he had to be as part of the wall to hear all the prayers, 3 times a day, 5 times a day, whatever it was, in order to have his soul fixed up, because he never went to synagogue. Right, so he was actually not only an inanimate object, he was like smack part of that wall. Imagine if he hated going to synagogue during his lifetime, and now he has to listen to it, 5, 6 times a day. It's got like any different accent. This guy's probably like going out of his mind, and finally God will decide when he said, okay, he's had enough. Let's take him out. We have no idea what a person, could do, what they could, certainly come back as. I'll just add one other thing, and that is most people think that reincarnation is not a Jewish concept, but it definitely, it definitely is, and we claimed it first. We did actually, a while ago, we did a thing on, we did some videos on reincarnation and Kabbalah. So
Right.
you can take a look over there. We had a lot of fun with that, actually. And actually, I did turn William into a frog, and then I brought him back. It was actually pretty impressive. But he looks better now. Anyway.
That's because I'm still waiting on my bottle of scotch. If frogs can't drink scotch.
That's the first one. Yeah, you gotta get past the first. It's like making a sale in real estate. You just got to get past the first one. Once you get past the first one, then everything else is a piece of cake. You just got to get past that first one. But it took you 6 months to start this show and get it off the ground. So
that's funny.
You got time.
That's funny. Cool. All right. So okay. So we've discussed the whole cremation thing. Now, what about the idea of the conflict of the way? I mean, you told me something today I never knew, that in the Holy Land in Israel, you actually get put straight in the ground, not inside of a casket.
Right.
Right. So explain. I mean, we kind of get the idea already just because of what we've already mentioned, but explain more details about that aspect, if you don't mind. So what?
It's kind of gruesome. I don't want to.
Well,
gross people
actually,
no. What they do is.
Rabbi,
Rabbi,
definitely keep it PG just in case. But so just kind of maybe just hit some rough topics. We may just have to move on to another topic altogether because I don't know that you can go very far with this anyway. So I just thought it was an interesting question my wife had asked, and I thought it'd be a good topic starter.
So here, once the body is cleaned out, that's what they do on any body. They clean out all the orifices, etc. Get it ready for burial. So within that 24-hour period, so the body's covered up, the family come, pay its last respects, etc. Then, the body's brought in, on the stretcher. I mean, it doesn't get more moving, than that, because you see what the reality of where everyone's going to go. I guess, in the States and other places, I guess it's different because you're just going in a box. So you don't really open the box. You don't see anything. An open casket, that's a whole nother issue. Actually, I can get to in a second. But once the body is there, right? So after the eulogies are done, so then the closest family members or friends will carry this this person into the hearse. The hearse will go, and people will go to the depending where the person's being buried, and then once being buried, so they've already dug out the hole. They put the planks down, and then they take the body. They don't just clunk it in there, but it's pretty graphic. I mean, it's if you've ever seen it, doesn't you don't see the face of the body. It doesn't really matter, but that is the end of all people, right? So the end of all people, you're going into the ground. It's just a lot more graphic because you go into you're directly going in, and then that's it. Then they fill it up with dirt. They put a thing with the name until they get the headstone or whatever. And that's and that's just one other aspect I think actually is interesting, and that is that once the person's died, what people do in many non-Orthodox burials is they'll have by the non-Jews. I never understood this, and I went to one once, and it was probably the most horrific thing I ever saw, and that was by going to a wake, right? And you see like the body sitting right there, and everyone's getting sloshed. It's like, oh, Grandma, you look better dead than alive, and like people telling jokes and having a smorgasbord, and the body is sitting, the body's sitting, right there. So by Orthodox Jews, you're never going to see that. You're never going to see an open casket. Maybe by Reform and Conservative, what they'll do is they'll have the family go back, like they'll have the casket, and they'll open the casket for the family to say goodbye, and then they'll close it. Now, I want to mention one thing. You have to imagine, that the body over here is body and soul together. Without a soul, the body's just a piece of meat. That's all it is. Now, what happens is the soul goes, gets at least according to the way Talmud tells, it gets sort of like squirted out of the body. It's like this poison goes in and eventually has nowhere else to hide, and it gets like thrown out of the body. It's kind of like a, I don't know, I guess when I learned about it many years ago, it seemed like a hypodermic needle. That's what it sounded like. It's like squirts in this poison, right? And this poison, like, makes the soul can't function, whatever, and the soul just basically goes out through the mouth. That's the way it, that's the way it sounds. In any case, the soul goes out, soul's totally confused, wants to try and go back in the body, but now the body's dead, right? The body can only function with the soul in it. So now what you have is, now the soul goes up and either it's going to get judged, or, until the body goes into the ground, it's going to hover around the places that it knows, family members' homes, or whatever the case is. But that body now is body without soul. So now imagine people looking at that body. What are they looking at? They're not looking at a human anymore, right? It's just a human form.
Right.
But the only way it becomes human is when it's alive. So there's no greater embarrassment, as it says according to Kabbalah, there's no greater embarrassment than looking at a body when it doesn't have the soul component.
Interesting.
Right? It's tremendously embarrassing and painful for the soul to be for the body to be looked at without a soul.
I was thinking of something that was really I don't know why, but like with our cat. In a second, you'll get why I'm bringing my cat into this. Whenever I come to and from the house, and I've got my work boots on, the real heavy steel toe, and we have like the laminated hardwood floors. And as I'm walking, they're pretty loud. I try not to stomp, but I just walk in. And as funny as when I'm walking through, the cat doesn't look at me. It looks directly at my boots, like my boots have a mind of their own, or like my boots aren't that.
Maybe they do.
It is me, right? And so, and it's funny, and as soon as I take my boots off, the cat looks at those boots for a minute, and then he looks up at me and will come over and start, right? So in a way, I'm thinking the soul is to the body kind of like a driver is to a car. Even though you see the person in the car all the time, when that person leaves the car, you don't go over and try to spend time with the car, right? Because that's not where the body's at. The body is with the body. So I guess in essence, you could see, I could kind of see a comparison there, that if it's the soul that is our entire existence, and this body is just a suit that we're wearing, so to speak.
Right.
That could kind of make sense.
I can't even imagine, like I said, the little that I do know and that I've read, about it. It's kind of like, I don't know, kind of like taking needles and pricking them in your body, right? Forget about acupuncture, but that's what it's like. It's like it's like you're looking at this body, but it's lifeless without the soul, and the soul's like, what are you looking at? You're just looking at a piece of meat. You're not looking at anything because I'm not in it. I'm not there to make it function, and because I'm not there to make it function, the soul gets even more confused and more upset because it's no longer there. It's no longer, quote unquote, a living entity into this world. Now it's part of the spiritual world, and wherever it's going to end up, it'll end up. But, at the same time, it now, it makes it real clear, if it wasn't clear already, that it can no longer go back, and now it's going to go to, where it, where hopefully it's going to end up in a good place. But,
right.
So then you get to the question, well, what about non-Jews? The non-Jews have an obligation, to be, to go into the ground. So when the Torah said that we're created from, all the dust, from the four corners of the earth, everyone's created from that. Good, all of mankind.
Interesting.
That's true, but this doesn't apply to a non-Jew, right? Okay. If a non-Jew wants to get cremated, it makes a lot more sense, Here, hi, Dad, put him right on the mantle.
But why wouldn't you? But for the righteous Gentile, the righteous non-Jew, why would they want to be cremated if they're going to be part of the world, Olam Haba, the world to come?
They could be,
right?
They could be,
right?
But they don't. But again, the 13 principles of resurrection, right? If a non-Jew may have a portion in that, doesn't for him, it's not going to matter whether he's cremated or not.
Okay.
Right, cremation really for him it doesn't really matter.
Oh, okay.
God can bring it back. God can bring him back either way. For a Jew, in order to get their full atonement, right? There's a difference between the Jewish soul and the non-Jewish soul. For them to get their true atonement, they have to go into the ground. That's the Jewish concept. A non-Jew can get atonement without going in the ground, right? It doesn't work. It doesn't work the same way for the same, for the reason, very simple reason, they don't have the same soul makeup. Jews and non-Jews are not the same. If they're not the same, they have different functions. If they have different functions, not everything's going to carry over. Probably most things won't. And that has nothing to do with whether we think we're better, we're not better.
Right.
There's a reality. We have different functions. Certainly not all non-Jews are supposed to be Jews. If God wanted everyone to be Jewish, well, they would be. But the whole world would be. But that's not the case. So, if they want to go in the ground, they certainly can. There's nothing stopping them. There's nothing wrong with that. If they want to be cremated, is that a Torah prohibition for them? Certainly not. It's not a rabbinical prohibition. Right? It doesn't apply to them. If they want to do it that way, there's no problem. The question is, do they have an obligation? Do they transgress if they do it? Right? So the answer is no, because they don't have the same soul makeup, so it doesn't apply to them. And if, again, when it comes to, the righteous in the world to come, it's a whole different thing. It's not going to be the same, right? It's definitely not going to be the same than what happens to a Jew, because there's so many differences of what we have to do and how things are done, and how atonement works. It doesn't apply the same, again, for the sole reason that, no pun intended, they don't have the same soul makeup. So it's going to be, that's going to be, that's going to be different.
Okay, so Bluesman, we answered that question earlier on in the show. You have to go back and rewatch regarding accidental or unknowingly getting cremated. So, okay, well, very good.
Oh, one other thing, reminds me. Someone had a tattoo, right? So for a Jew, for sure, getting a tattoo is forbidden. So some have told me that here in Israel, once a person dies, if they have a tattoo, right? So they use I don't know what they use exactly, but they take it off the body. So I asked my Rebbe about it once, and he said, yeah, it's a good thing to do. He said, because, if a tattoo is forbidden to have, first thing God's going to say when you get upstairs, okay, he's going to ask you, did you keep the Torah? Did you keep mitzvahs? Were you honest in business? Then he's going to say, hey, what's that sailor tattoo on your bicep, on your shoulder? Like, what are you, what are you, an idiot? Why, so instead of, a person's going to have enough things they're going to have to answer for. So if they never took off their tattoo, right, so then, somehow, I don't know, they burn it off, whatever they do, they do some sort of...
But wait a minute. But wait. So that creates a whole nother topic we have to revisit again then. Because getting a tattoo is putting a mark in your flesh. Well, getting it removed is also putting a mark in your flesh. So you're saying...
So if you do it... So you can do it today. I have many people that before they convert, most of them have tattoos. So how do you take them off today? You take them off by laser, right? Now laser, it is expensive, right? It doesn't necessarily leave a wound. But if it would, let's say it would leave a wound. Say 100%, you're not allowed to leave you're not allowed to make a wound, in the body. Once you already have the tattoo, you transgress in one shot. You don't transgress every single day. Right? It's just, okay, you did it, it's over, whatever. You want to have it removed, you can. Is there an obligation to have it removed? So that's an interesting question, because if you have it removed, you could end up making a wound. So if you make a wound, that may be a Torah prohibition, maybe a rabbinic prohibition. But I've heard my Rebbe say a number of times, even if you're over a rabbinic prohibition, that's probably what it's going to be, it's still better to transgress that prohibition than have that tattoo left on your body.
All right. Well, let's take this caller. Caller, welcome to the show. Please tell us your name and where you're calling from.
Pat Melton, calling from Dallas, Texas.
Hi, Pat. Welcome. What's the question for Rabbi today?
Yes. I bought a plot, when I was in my 20s. Now I'm 74.
Okay.
And it was rest land. And we just buried my husband.
I'm sorry.
In one space. We're non-Jews, so I didn't know what to do, And since that time, I've been wanting a Jewish burial, because I understand that's pretty important. And I've been listening to Rabbi Chaim Coffman, and on a call-in show. And I wanted to know, I asked the administrator at Restland, I said, can I get a green burial? He said no. So I'm thinking, what can I do? Because I understand my husband now, he was put in a coffin, and not only that, but now they require a vault, a cement vault. So he's all canned up like a can of tuna. And now, does that mean he won't be raised up?
Right. Just first of all, Pat, thank you for calling in. And I don't know if you know this or not, but you're actually live on the air with Rabbi Chaim Coffman. Would you like to say hi to him?
Oh, my gosh. Okay. Well, I'm not trying to be...
No.
You know what I want is I want to please God.
That's great.
Now, I'm a Christian.
Okay.
And he was too.
Okay.
And I'm just all worried now. I don't want him floating around. You know what I'm saying?
Sure.
I've heard of this. People who can't find rest, and I don't want that same fate. I'm thinking about selling my plot and finding a place where I can have a Jewish burial.
Right.
Is that a good idea for me?
Well, I'll tell you what, let's go ahead and disconnect and keep listening in, because Rabbi's fixing to get on your question. I mean, one of the last things you mentioned to me is actually going to incorporate yet a third topic that we're going to have to cover. So I appreciate the question. It's a great question. And just go ahead and hang up now and tune in for your answer. Don't stop watching the show, because he's fixing to start talking about it right now.
Oh, thank you so much.
You're welcome. You're welcome.
Appreciate it.
All right, very good, very
Bye-bye.
good. Okay, so there you go. So now we actually have a third topic.
Don't confuse me. I just stick to one topic.
It's the same topic, but you have to include a third group of people now, which theoretically is a whole new topic in itself. So we've been discussing burial and cremation with the Jew and with the non-Jew, but we really haven't covered burial and I guess you could say resurrection with someone who's in Christianity or another one of the religions like that. So, and it would be an error on both of us to bypass that in the conversation today.
It would be, wouldn't it?
Yes, it would. We have to cover that. By the way, Pat, thank you so much for your question. It was a really genuine, great question. And so I'm going to pass this on to Rabbi. Rabbi, take it away.
Okay. Very good question. Interesting. Definitely an interesting topic. One thing, I just want to backtrack for 1 second. And, if someone who's a Christian, right, they're not giving up. They're not giving up JC. They're, still believe in him, let's say, according to this. I'm not sure exactly, where a Jewish burial, is going to fit in. But, even if someone is, put in a coffin and they're smushed in and there's, no room to move, there's no air and, what's going to be, remember, by whether it's someone who's a non-Jew that doesn't, that doesn't believe in JC, or they're a they're a Noahide, whatever the case is, they have absolutely, it doesn't matter, whether it doesn't matter one way or the other if they go in the ground, if they whatever type of coffin that they go in, right? They don't have an obligation to go in the ground, and that's really not going to make that much, it's really not going to make that much of a difference. The real question, I think, is if someone is a Noahide, should they be buried in a Christian cemetery? Right? That would be
interesting. Okay.
I think that would be, an interesting question. If really we hold that Christianity is idolatry, I'm not sure why you would want to be buried there. Maybe buried outside the cemetery and maybe non-sectarian or whatever. But certainly, I think that there's, there are many more issues, to worry about than, if they're in the ground, in a vault, or not. That would, if a Jew was placed in a vault, and this type of mausoleum, something like that, that's bad, right? That is definitely bad. They are going to suffer tremendously. Right, they'll be floating around, who knows what, have these angels of destruction running after them. They're not going to have any rest, The reason they're not going to have any rest is because they're not in the ground. A Christian, they're in the ground. A non-Jew, they're in the ground. They're not in the ground. It doesn't really, in the bigger scheme of things, it doesn't really matter. Whatever's going to come to them is going to come to them, whether they go in the ground or not, right? So that, that doesn't really, that doesn't really matter. If someone is really that worried, as the Christian says, well, I really want to have a Jewish burial, then maybe you want to think about what it means, to be a Jew, or if you don't want to be a Christian, but both sort of are not going to mix together.
Now, real quickly, I want to say something real fast because I do know there's always going to be people out there who are going to be tuning in for the first time, and they'll hear something like that referring to Christianity as idolatrous religion, things like that, for the very first time. And so what I'd say is go to the TORAH Talk YouTube channel, and you'll find there's over 400 videos there, and just look through the titles, and if you've never really heard that before, you're going to be quite shocked at what you're going to find out. So, but if you haven't heard it before and you're in shock now, you need to know why we're discussing it that way. Okay, so go to the YouTube TORAH Talk channel and just surf through all the videos there with all the titles, and you'll find a lot of answers that you most likely probably don't want to know, but they're there. So,
and if you really want to get upset, go to TORAH Talk and controversial issues. That will really get you upset.
All right, let's move on to this.
Uh-oh, there we go. See, I told you.
All right, caller, welcome to the show. Please tell us your name, what you call, where you're calling from. Thank you.
All right, let's move on.
Uh-oh, there we go.
See, they're actually listening to the video. It's like 20 seconds behind. Give them a few seconds here. By the way, we're at 39. Just letting you know.
Is that me?
That is you. You are live. Who am I speaking with?
Oh, wow, it's me. Hi, this is Yael, and I'm calling from Beechwood, Ohio, the
welcome
stormy waste.
Welcome to Texas. How are you doing?
This is...
Go ahead. Actually, what you're going to want to do is you're going to want to not watch the video and just totally listen to the phone call because there's like a 25-second lag there.
My question is a little bit technical.
Okay, go right ahead.
Oh, okay. Hang on. Okay, I'm gonna listen to the phone call then. Okay. The video is paused now.
Good deal.
Okay, so here's my question: how long does the soul hang around the body after death? And which part of the soul remains hanging around the body? Because it's inconceivable to me that the neshama or anything higher would not ascend immediately.
So this is a pretty deep Kabbalistic question that may have to have a whole show on itself.
Yeah, but he can handle it. Look at that face.
Can.
That's a face that speaks of confidence.
That's great. That's great. Okay, so Rabbi, if you've got that question, probably what we'll do is we'll have him highlight on it, and then if we need to push it onto another show, we can do that as well. Okay. Thank you, Yael.
Okay, great. Thanks a lot.
You betcha.
Sure.
Shalom,
Bye-bye.
shalom. Bye-bye. That's cool.
Very good question. Usually, what she said was right, that there are different aspects of the soul. Certainly, there are the lowest aspect of the soul is the nefesh. The nefesh itself is why we call it the lowest aspect, because that's the one that keeps everything else together, and that's where it goes into the bloodstream and keeps the person alive. So, there are other aspects, the chidah, the neshama, etc. Those are higher aspects of the soul. Those probably, as she says, probably true, that they're not going to be hanging around, right? That once the person dies, that part of the soul go up. Now, the lower aspect of the soul, the nefesh is really part of the animalistic aspect of the soul that everybody has. Every Jew and non-Jew has that. We are part animal, that's for sure. Anyway, so we are part of that. So that aspect of the soul, could still be hanging around, in places that it knows before it gets summoned up. It's not the entire soul, gets summoned up, as far as I understand, straight away. Some of the higher aspects maybe, may go up there, but the lower aspects will probably be around until usually the 7-day period of Shiva, which means 7, even though by Reform and Conservative Jews it's maybe like a day and a half or 2 days. But when a person dies, that you have an obligation to mourn for, mother, father, sister, brother, God forbid a child or a spouse, right? So you sit 7 days. Obviously, you don't sit on Shabbos. Actually, I got this question, kind of interesting question that a family member asked that a relative that passed away, and they only sat for a couple of days, and they buried him on Friday right before Shabbos. I came on Sunday, and that was the last day they were sitting. It was only a few days, so they had a disagreement whether they should observe mourning customs on the Sabbath, on Shabbos. So I didn't have anyone necessarily to mourn for, but this is actually a question that I knew. So they said, "Oh, we'll ask you. What's the answer?" I said, "You don't mourn on Shabbos." So 3 people were very excited, and 2 people weren't so excited because they thought you should have to mourn on Shabbos. In any case, there's a 7-day period. Right, the 7-day period, you don't mourn on Shabbos. If there's a festival, then that breaks it up or ends the 7-day period. Whatever the case is, you have a 7-day period, 7-day mourning period. Usually around that time, right? Those 7 days, the soul's still around. Goes to places that it knows. Usually after the 7-day mourning period, that's when it should go up and get its judgment. Not usually before. But again, this is all steeped in. This is all steeped in Kabbalah, and other things. So, could there be souls that go straight up and don't even hang around? Yeah. There's, let's say, God forbid, someone got killed sanctifying God's name, killed in a terrorist attack, or killed in the Holocaust. There's no waiting around period. Their soul goes straight up. They go to the highest level. So, the soul doesn't necessarily have to be around for those 7 days. It depends. It depends how it dies, what happens to it. I mean, it could depend on any number of factors, but certainly, someone, God forbid, killed for the sake of heaven for being a Jew, and that's the only reason why they're killed, their soul goes straight up. According to Kabbalah, there's nothing to talk about, right? Regardless of how much they knew or didn't know or whatever, that soul goes, that soul goes straight up. There are people that have said, if a soul, even if the person is totally evil, they don't keep Torah mitzvahs, but they get killed in a terrorist attack. Wrong place, wrong time. They get mauled by an Arab gang or whatever the case is, get knifed, killed, burnt, whatever the case is. So I've heard some people say that, even if a person's that evil, he's not going to go straight up. But he died sanctifying God's name. So I asked someone very much steeped in Kabbalah, and he said, no way. He said he goes straight up, right? Regardless of what that person was doing, that soul came to be sanctified, right? That is its Olam Haba, came to this world in order for this to happen at some point. So therefore, regardless of what it kept in this world, right, it's going to go, if it dies sanctifying God's name, right, by being killed for the sole reason of being a Jew, that soul's going to go straight up, right? It's going to be in the highest level by the heavenly throne itself. Now, I've heard some people say, not that way, but, I asked someone, very much deep in Kabbalah, and that was the answer. That was the answer that I got. So, like, I would say maybe, could be the vast majority, hang around for 7 days, right? And then after that, they get their judgment. But, there are others that won't be the case. Maybe they'll go straight up. Maybe, it's going to take other time. What if they don't go in the ground? If they don't go in the ground, there's nothing to talk about. Then, they don't get judged, and they go through other scary things. So, I guess the bottom line is, we have to learn how to live. We have to learn how to die. But, even in death, like someone once told me, they said, well, when I die, at least you have, plenty of time to sleep. My Rebbe said, what are you talking about? You got plenty of what to do even after you die. No time to rest. Who knows what, what a person could do or what they could go through. But, the way it sounds doesn't sound so pleasant. What's gonna be. If we think about what Rosh Hashanah is, just in general, and about opening our book and opening what we've done, in the last year, and how bad we feel, and the remorse and the guilt and the this and the that. Imagine a whole lifetime of what's been done, and then you have to stand in front of the King of Kings as a pure soul, or maybe a sullied soul, and you see your whole life flash before you, and then you can't say, well, I didn't do this, right? Because it's all being recorded, right? Everyone has an out-of-body experience, all says the same thing. They see their life flash before their eyes. Can't lie and say, no, I didn't do this. And then, then you have to answer. And many say that is what hell feels like, because now you see absolute truth. You see it so clear day and night, it's day and night that, you have to, hopefully you have a good excuse why you did something. God can say either yay or nay. And if he says nay, okay, that's a demerit.
Sure.
Knock that off, knock this off, and you have to answer. I don't know anything, forget all the worst punishments you can think of and all those Freddy Krueger movies and everything else. But imagine having to answer for what you've done.
Mm-hmm.
You got your hand stuck in a cookie jar. So you're trying to explain, it's not really a cookie jar. These really look like cookies, but they weren't cookies. They were burnt, so I couldn't even eat them. You come up with 10 different excuses when you get your hand in the cookie jar. And what's God going to say? That is, I think that's the ultimate. I'm keeping this PG, so that is
Sure.
the ultimate in scary, because at the end of the day, we have to answer for what we've done. And everything's being recorded, just like we're recording now, and there's no possible way you can squirm out of it. So when you're a pure soul outside the body, you see things clear as day, right? Black and white. And, what are we going to answer on that, on that day? That is pretty scary, and that is pretty embarrassing. And hopefully, even if we have to go through it, that embarrassment should carry over and at least, give us some other merits, because we're totally embarrassed by what we've seen and what we've done. And the angels are just laughing and throwing popcorn at the screen. They're like, oh, look at this. This is funny. And they're throwing this and throwing that in, and that is, and that's pretty scary. As one person once told me, they said, well, when I die, I'm going 6 feet under. And my answer was, I hope you're right for your sake, because if you're wrong,
yeah,
I think you're wrong, and it's going to be quite
right.
painful. You're going to have to answer for what we've done, and I don't think it gets any worse than that.
Okay,
if we have good answers, good. If not, we're cooked.
All right, we're going to take a shift on this last question. We've got about 8 minutes left, or a little longer if we need to. This is a YouTube comment.
You're not longer. You said you were going to be done 20 minutes ago. What happened?
So Rachel Diaz says, why should a rabbi be giving answers based upon Kabbalah when Kabbalah is not written or oral Torah? So since it's not the Torah, yes, go ahead.
First of all, it is written down. It wasn't supposed to be written down, but it was written down.
Okay.
Secondly, it was written by Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai, the last day of his life, that he revealed this to his students. Then it got passed down and was brought down by, and major commentary on that was the famous Rav Isaac Luria, right? So, I'm not turning people into frogs over here. We're explaining a few ideas, a few ideas that are brought in, Can we go into more detail? I probably couldn't go into so much more detail because it's not my area of expertise, but at the same time, I think it's important that people understand, what the soul is, where it goes, what the purpose of life is. I gave a class for a year and a half based on the book Derech Hashem, The Way of God by Rav Moshe Chaim Luzzatto, Zecher Tzadik Livrocha. May his name be blessed. And that went through the, people thought I was crazy, going through like why God created the world, the purpose of man, good and evil, where the soul comes from, the struggle we have in this world, the nation, all these different things, all of that's steeped in Kabbalah. So what, are you teaching them Kabbalah? Of course we're not teaching them Kabbalah. Teaching them ideas that they can understand how the world works, right? Now, certainly they're not going to get it from the Christians, that's for sure, right? So at least they get it from, a pure source to understand what in the world they're doing it, whether they're a Jew or a non-Jew, because evil inclination works both ways. Mm-hmm. But how can you understand reincarnation, which is a Kabbalistic concept, no question about it? How can you understand it if you don't understand how good and evil work? If you're a Christian, it's very easy. God created good, and there's evil, and they fight, and evil has power, right? That's, so as a Jewish concept, it's not true, right? Evil and good are part of the same thing, right? They're just, the question is, who has dominion? When we do the right thing, fine, but we can also do the wrong thing. So how can a person understand what reincarnation is, what judgment is, how God judges, if you don't understand the basics of how the evil inclination works? You can say, oh, that's Kabbalah, right? That's Aleph base. If a person wants to navigate through this world and understand what they're doing here, how can you understand the sin of Adam and Eve? Right? That's all Kabbalah. 100% Kabbalah, right? But you have to understand, it's an evil inclination. Snake doesn't have free will, right? The snake is the angel of death. He represents the evil inclination, right? There's a whole thing going on there, right? Regardless of what others may say, that whatever it was, right? But it's all part of the evil inclination. How does the evil inclination work? What is the difference between when Adam ate from the tree and before he ate from the tree, right? Is there a difference? There's a huge difference. Right? Again, a lot of it may be steeped in Kabbalah, but if you water it down and you explain at least somewhat how the concepts work, you can understand the struggle that a person goes through, Jew or non-Jew, on a regular basis. What's the source of all that? The source of all that is creation. Right? Everybody believes in creation, more or less. Right? Mm-hmm. So if you believe in creation, so then what happened? What happened when Adam and Eve ate from the tree? You're going to say, well, it's Kabbalah. You're right, it's Kabbalah. But again, let's bring it down. Let's analyze, how does it apply to us? In which way? So take a look at that book. That goes through a lot of, not an easy book for sure, but goes through a lot of interesting things about how we function in the world. I would think, and my answer would be, I would think that's important for Jew or non-Jew to understand, without going into deep Kabbalistic things. Just understand how the concept works and how you fit in the picture. So people can throw popcorn at the screen and they can say, oh, he's teaching Kabbalah, he's doing this, he's doing that. Okay. But I think it's quite important that people understand, people certainly understand that. And as I always say, it has to be understood in context. Right? You have to understand what's going on. And these are deep, very, very deep concepts that people have misconstrued, and thrown words around where they don't have any idea in the world what's going on. And, some people have taken me to task recently on this, about oral law and, different things. And again, go back to the source. See what the source says. See what the context is. Are we sending 3-year-olds out for prostitution? No. That was a specific case. This is what happened. We're not advocating it. We're not lunatics, even though people think that the Talmud is a whole bunch of lunacy. But we're not advocating that. You have to see things in context. Now, so if you go back to Genesis and you see there's something that happened when Adam and Eve ate from the tree, and now the whole world is different. Why does God throw them out of the garden afterwards? I mean, there are a lot of questions. There are a lot of deep questions, but you have to get to some basic understanding to see how everything fits in. Because if you don't understand how things fit in, all these things don't make any sense at all. Which, for a lot of people, it's just, they learn a whole bunch of things, but they don't have anyone proper that teaches them. It's a whole bunch of, it's all thrown out there without any guidance whatsoever.
Wow. Okay. Yeah, we're gonna add another topic. What about?
We don't have time. Oh, it's time to go. Look at that.
Okay, if you have to go, I will respect that. But otherwise, I'm gonna ask you the question.
No, man, I'm good. It's an hour earlier. I can keep going. Let's go.
Okay, good. Okay, well, just remember organ donors. But we're gonna take this call next. Okay, hang on. Caller, welcome to the show. Please tell. We're not gonna finish up today, are we? Caller, welcome to the show. Please tell us your name. Where you're calling from. Caller, can you hear us?
Hello?
Hello. How are you? You're going to need to turn down your monitor and just listen in at the phone because there's like a 25-second delay between.
There's a delay.
There's a delay from what I say from the time that you hear it or till the time that you hear it. So you want to just talk directly in the phone and turn your monitor down in your room if you don't mind.
Right. Okay.
So whenever you're ready, go ahead with your question.
Sorry, I was the question. He just mentioned about Adam and Eve when they did. He just mentioned about Adam and Eve, and when they ate from the tree of knowledge. I think it's very important to note that the fact that they ate from the tree of knowledge is simply eating a fruit. It's find perfection.
You're breaking up quite a bit.
When somebody buys a new car, even the smallest scratch is something that stands out like unbelievably, and that's what the destruction destroyed a perfect world. Think about that. Perfection destroyed.
It's breaking up really, really badly. Actually, it's very difficult to hear you.
In a negative in the whole world, and that's why it was such a great.
Okay. Huh. Yeah, it was really breaking up so bad. Yeah, can you hear me okay? Hello?
Hello, yes.
Oh, hello. I guess whenever I was trying to click another button, it actually answered the other phone call. That's okay. I couldn't really make out what the other guy was saying. Please tell us your name and where you're calling from.
My name is Hector, and I'm calling from San Antonio, Texas.
Hector, welcome. You're pretty close by.
Thank you.
We'll have to grab coffee sometime.
And, we talked about you and I getting together or something after one of these.
Oh, right
Sundays,
on.
So I'm looking forward to that.
We should do that for sure.
Looking forward to that.
All right. Well,
I love that.
We'll keep in touch. Okay, so what is the question for Rabbi today?
Pardon me?
Do you have a question for the Rabbi?
Yes, I do have a question for the Rabbi. I've
Cool.
got two of them. One,
Okay.
my lovely wife is asking about the chakra. Like, what is that about? And secondly, I'm asking about the Sephardic Jew. I've not really heard that Tovia talk about Sephardic Jews, so please let us know.
Okay. What we might do, we might push both of those off until a little bit later, because we got one more major topic on the topic for today's show. Why don't you send me an email with those two questions, or just a Facebook message or something like that to remind me, and we'll push that on Rabbi Singer's show on next weekend. Sound good?
We can do that, yes.
Okay, brother. Thank you for calling in, man. We'll look forward to getting together with you sometime, okay?
Yeah, shalom, blessings.
Okay, shalom. Okay, so Rabbi, let's go ahead and we'll close out with the can a person be an organ donor, and what kind of ramifications does that have in Judaism?
You don't have time. I mean,
well,
answer me this question in 30 seconds flat, but you're going to explain all of knowledge in the world. You can't do that.
On one foot.
There's a whole topic in of itself. I'll say quickly.
Okay.
I'll say quickly that there are certain things that if you're going to give, if a person's going to give organs, right? There's always certain times you're going to be able to give them, right? You can't obviously, if your heart's still beating, you want to give your heart to someone else to live because you're going to die anyway, right? Well, they're going to kill you in order to take your heart out, right? That you're not allowed to do. But if there's other organs, a person's healthy, let's say a kidney transplant, you can certainly, a person certainly could donate, other things after death. So whatever, the whole discussion when, if it's right after death, the organs are still, fresh. Can you do it, or not? Whatever. It's a big, it's a big topic. Okay. Whether there are people that certainly hold you can do that as long as you're not taking out the organs out of the person when they're still alive, because if you do that, you are then essentially killing them.
Right.
So that you certainly can't do if it's an organ, that you could live without. And a person's healthy to do that, selling, not selling, giving a kidney or something that, can certainly help save someone else. Fine. I mean, that may have to give a person have to give their retina for someone else. Once a person dies, right? Once a person dies, so there are those that'll say, yeah, you can take some of these organs as long as they are usable. Right, you can take them and use them for someone else. Not everyone agrees on that, but that's it's a much bigger topic for that.
That's cool. We can certainly revisit it at another time. Maybe we'll have to handle it on an individual question basis at just a different time and location. So that'd be fine. Well, we kind of.
But the bottom line is you take out any organs that are going to kill a person in order to save someone else. If the person's still alive, that's for sure.
Very good. Well, Well, Rabbi, it's been fun and it's been crazy. Maybe a little bit of both. So it's always a pleasure having you on the show for sure.
We're not going to finish this topic. No problem.
Garrett,
plenty what to talk about. We got a half an hour, 40 minutes. What are we going to speak about?
We keep going. You're going to blow up my system again. We can't have that now. So we did hit 40.
I probably will, so you're going to get me off right now.
Hey, we did hit 40, by the way. Just want to let you know. I'll give you my address after the show.
No! Oh, no!
Shalom, everybody. Thank you for tuning in. Be sure to subscribe to the YouTube channel and turn on the little notifications bell. Otherwise, subscribing will get you nowhere. So take care.
That 40th person was, you owe him a bottle of scotch.
Take care. Shalom, everybody. We'll see you on the other side.
Oh,
Shavua Tov. Take care. Bye-bye.
חשוב מכל חשוב והכרחי להיות ביחד.